The war in Ukraine was high on the agenda as German Chancellor Olaf Scholz met with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida in Tokyo today. This is Scholz's first trip to Asia as Chancellor, and he chose Japan as the regional starting point. His recent predecessors have all gone to China first, so the move is a departure from previous protocol and considered to possibly signal a shift in focus. After decades of pacifism, Germany recently shifted policy by authorizing sales of heavy weaponry to Ukraine and by increasing its defense budget. Now Japan is considering taking similar steps.
A promotional video showing Japan's navy at work. A thinly veiled advertisement for the Japanese government's rearmament plans. The sea may look peaceful, the narrator says, but the world is changing. Japan also feeling the effects of Russia's military aggression. Shigeru Ishiba is a former Minister for Defense and one of the most prominent voices calling for Japan to rearm.
It's true, the war in Ukraine has woken up the Japanese people. They're thinking about how to better protect their country.
The alliance between Chinese President Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin has unsettled the region. As China has grown more powerful, calls for the purchase of offensive weapons are getting louder in Japan.
Whether it's China or another nation, every country that knows we possess offensive weapons and can defend ourselves will adapt its behaviour towards us.
The horrors of Hiroshima have shaped the country's military policy for decades. Pacifism is written into Japan's constitution. But Japan's new Prime Minister Fumio Kishida is willing to change that. He is close to the military and has argued for Japan's right to own offensive weapons.
He would try to sort of draw inspiration from the German change in order to make the same argument that, well, we are in a similar situation and Japan should also, now change its position and start to remilitarize more seriously.
In 2020, Japan spent more than 45 billion euros on its military. That's met with resistance from peace activists. The trauma of the Second World War still weighs heavily on many.
No more war, ever again. All my life I fought for that message.
But here, as elsewhere in the world, Russia's war is accelerating rearmament.
DW Chief Political Editor Michaela Kufna is traveling with Chancellor Scholz in Japan, and she first explained what Japan is doing to aid Ukraine.
Well, Fumio Kishida was adamant that he perceived it Japan's duty to help Ukraine, to help the Ukrainian people. They are sending goods, they're not sending weapons because they have constraints within their own constitution. And a German Chancellor coming here first is a clear political symbol that he does not want to go to China first. He's not going to the most important economic partner. He's going to the partner of the G7, of those Western democratic values. And that's what both nations have also vowed to stand in for. Further afield, also here in the region, they're also doing joint military exercises. So this is all very new ground, both for Germany and for Japan. And they are seeing what happens in Ukraine as a threat to democracy and freedom rather than a regional conflict.
We'll get back to you in a second, Michaela, but first let's have a listen to part of what Olaf Scholz said at that press conference that you were at.
My trip is a clear political signal that Germany and the European Union will continue and intensify their engagement in the Indo-Pacific region. In view of the Russian war of aggression, our common focus is currently on Ukraine. Germany and Japan stand side by side in defending the rules-based international order, in upholding the fundamental principles of the UN Charter, and in our commitment to universal human rights.
A very clear statement there from Scholz. Michaela, why is it so remarkable that Chancellor Scholz would make his first trip to Asia to Japan?
because really rather than going where a lot of Germany's economic recovery was, particularly after the pandemic, which is China with an auto industry, several auto companies highly reliant on that Chinese market, he's decided to go to Japan instead. And both sides, we hear those values, and that sounds a bit lofty in a soundbite, but when you really break it down, this translates also into huge business delegations talking to each other here in Tokyo as well, and really a call by the German Chancellor on German industry to diversify, which also means not to be reliant on one country, namely also China, when it comes to their supply chains. So it is really trying to make the economies more independent. So something on a different field can't happen again like has happened to the EU and Germany, that they are energy reliant solely on one country, which at the moment, of course, is Russia.
Germany and Japan both moved toward pacifism after World War II. In Berlin, that has begun to change since Russia invaded Ukraine. Are we likely to see a similar shift in Tokyo?
Well, it already was quite a shift for Japan to send goods. In fact, the German Chancellor will take some supply goods, not military, but humanitarian aid back in his own plane. So there's a lot of symbolism in that as well. There's a lot of solidarity. And Germany also is going on a very new path. What is seen as Germany finally sending heavy weapons really is quite a change, quite a turnaround in itself in terms of where Germany puts its support in hardware terms. So both countries are now seeing their societies start this debate that could potentially enable their leaders to go a step further. And one thing is for sure, everybody expects that conflict between Russia and Ukraine and the pressure it puts on the international system, the geostrategic pressures, to continue for a very long time.
DW's chief political editor, Michaela Küfner in Tokyo, thank you so much.